Thank you very much. So first and foremost, I call this meeting to order at 8:32 a.m. And to begin, I want to just say, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Reading School Committee is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling, and I have the number here, 402-287-4615, and entering PIN 188-088-723#. Okay, and as Patrick said, if you do want to speak, just unmute yourself. If you are not speaking, please do try to keep yourself on mute. And pursuant to open meeting laws, because we are remote, I'm going to make sure that we take roll calls whenever we have a motion pending, so that everybody knows who is voting which way. And finally, it seems like Patrick already did this, but just for the public record, we should take attendance. And I'll just say that, I can tell from that's on here that myself is here, Scott Buckley, Rich McGowan is here, Chris Papavasilio is here, Janine Imbriano is here, and Diana Boutwell is here as well. In addition, Patrick Daly, the superintendent, and Assistant Superintendent Michael Connolly is here. So with all that being said, I appreciate everybody coming here today on an emergency motion or an emergency meeting. We'll start with public input as we always do. There is one person that we're not sure who that is. So if there is anybody from the public that would like to speak about something that is not already on the agenda today, I'll give you a couple of seconds to unmute yourself and please speak. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on. I assume we do not have a student report tonight, Patrick?
We do not.
Okay. There's no continued business. We're going to go right to the new business. So the main reason that we're here is obviously the coronavirus and, the response from the public schools. So first, I would just turn it over to Dr. Daly for an update on the coronavirus and the North Reading Public Schools reaction.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Buckley. We have been working sort of nonstop with this every day. There's been conferences at the state level, at all of our superintendents associations. I feel like I just want to give a thank you to Michael Connolly and our entire administrative team. We've worked tirelessly to, I think in some ways as best as possibly, be proactive to try and address some of the questions that might be coming down the road in these completely uncertain times. We came together as an administrative team last Wednesday. We were working on what to cancel. It seems like a thousand years ago. We were talking about, are we still going to have this event versus that event versus another event? Thursday, things changed dramatically as circumstances occurred in other districts, and we needed to have sort of a reciprocal response to some of those, which resulted in the difficult decision, which I thought was just really well executed, to dismiss our middle and high school early, and to our elementary schools were already released early. We then closed the building starting on Thursday and started a deep clean. We were able to meet with our custodians, started our deep clean. We proceeded to do our deep clean through Friday. Building was closed. We were thinking quite seriously at that time about continuing that, and then over the weekend, the governor extended that closing of schools through April 7th, which was the original date that he used, and we are sticking with that original date of April 7th as a return date to school. Over the weekend, we communicated out quite a bit. We completed a frequently asked questions document, which answered a lot of questions. We sort of broke up the categories into some of the human resources questions, general information, COVID-19 information, teaching and learning information, and then also special education. And we broke those out. And our team worked very hard to develop that document. I'm proud to say that that document has been shared statewide. You might see that in a lot of different school websites, a document that looks very similar to ours. And I think it helps serve as a template for a lot of folks who are working on something very similar this week. And so we're proud of that, and I'm proud of the work our team has done. There's a lot of questions that I'm sure folks have that we may be able to address with respect to teaching and learning, with respect to some other pieces and aspects of this. And so I'm going to mostly, I'll turn this over to Michael if he has anything to add, but I'm sure there's a lot of questions. But our second agenda item today is also about the payment of wages, because there are definitely questions around that. And that was why I thought we should have this meeting, is just to discuss and to vote a little bit about some of what we have been putting forward. Some of it we had to act in the moment and try to keep people whole in this time of crisis. But I feel that it was prudent to meet to discuss our plans with the payment of wages, certainly during this first 2-week and now a 3-week closure. So, Michael, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that. You may need to unmute yourself also.
He's a man of few words.
Mute is at the bottom of the screen, Michael. If you could also do, yeah. Okay, I'm going to go to Scott. Michael and I are both here, so if he needs me, he knows he can just pop over here.
Okay, thank you. So to the committee, are there any questions that anybody else has? And why don't we, for the purpose of ease, why don't we just go around, in order? And Chris, I can see your photo, so I'll sort of start with you. Do you have any questions, any comments on anything?
Yeah. So, thank you, first of all, and thank you, Patrick, for the tireless work you guys have been putting in. I know firsthand just how much this has thrown everyone off kilter. But really, my one question is, what are the efforts that are being done by the teachers and the administrators to try and keep some semblance of learning going on at home during this time? And what are the expectations for how kids can kind of keep up?
Great, Chris. Great question. So this is clearly stated here, but it's also very confusing. And so I appreciate the question. I'm getting this from a lot of folks. I will say that, the key here is that these are non-school days. Okay. And so first of all, I have to differentiate, what's happening in other districts versus what's happening here. I know that what we're doing here is clear, and we can't really compare ourselves to other districts. We can't really compare ourselves to other states. What's being very clear from the state is that these need to be non-school days, and so this is not, we can't just switch to online like some colleges and universities are doing. And there are many reasons for that. Most of them have to deal with equity, and that's equity among our own students, making sure that all students are able to receive services. Any student that doesn't have access to the internet or access to services that can't be provided virtually would be being denied of free access to their public education. So we have to be very careful about calling this a school day and saying learning is going to happen, everyone's going to be online at a certain time, assignments are going to be made, teachers are going to be given feedback and grading. So we have to be very careful of violating anyone's access to a free education. There are certain students you could imagine that just can't do that based on their specialized programs, and so we can't do it for some and not for all. Okay, and then across the state, there's an issue of equity that we can't do this. In some districts, might be wealthy and ready to do this, and they've paid a lot of money for some robust system, and in other places, they can't do it at all. I'd say North Reading is somewhere in the middle. We have a lot of tools and a lot of technology, but we don't have a complete learning management system that we can switch to overnight. So I would not say, and I've spoken to some parents about this is not a technology issue. We do have Chromebooks, we do have online learning, but we can't just switch and just pretend like it's a regular school day. So what we're doing, which is what the entire state has agreed to do, and we've had many meetings with superintendents in a lot of districts. Some of those districts, I will say, are the ones that I'm reading some different messages coming from teachers in those districts. So I've repeated to superintendents, hey, you might want to go look at your blah, blah, blah to make sure we're all on the same page here, okay? The other thing that's important is our relationship with our unions. We have an excellent relationship with our unions here. There are some some districts that I've heard there are more challenges than what we've had here. Peter Kane, our teachers and REA president, has been wonderful. He and I have been speaking multiple times a day, bouncing ideas off one another, making sure we're all on the same page with our expectations. So our teachers are working, they are checking in. We've set some sort of minimum expectations for folks because honestly, remember, all these folks are home, many of them with their own children and their own parents and dealing with things as well. And that's sort of always our first priority, myself and Michael included. We've got families, and if someone in our family is sick, those are our priorities. I think we all know that. But at the same time, I think our teachers are really coming together. If you can see what they're doing, I'm looking at emails, I'm looking at social media, Twitter, things like that. The lessons that teachers are putting out there for students to access are fantastic. So Dr. Downs and our entire team, Mr. Clean, Ms. O'Connell, everybody on our administrative team has put together some incredible resources, and there's more and more coming every day. I'm tweeting some things out. People are putting things out there. We're trying to put them out in somewhat of an organized fashion. But right now, it's just been sort of a sharing of resources. So there's a lot out there to do. So the idea is that folks that are at home can work with their students. We highly recommend having some kind of structured day. These, parents shouldn't view this as a snow day where they're just having play dates or playing. We should think of it as a learning day where folks can go in and access some of these resources, even if it's as simple as I put out 150 educational programs on Netflix. Again, most of these have been vetted. I'm using some reputable sources to forward. We're doing the best we can. WGBH is putting out lots of quality programming, and also they're actually giving time on the air for the Department of Education to have some Massachusetts teachers and educators come out and actually do some learning there. So for folks without internet access, you can watch WGBH over the airwaves. If you don't have internet access, there's already low program, $10 a month programs, but I believe all the major providers are providing free access to the internet, and I think we've shared that out on our website and on our frequently asked questions. So we want to make sure everyone has some access to those materials that are out there. So again, the basic way that it's going to work is students can engage, teachers are going to put things out, recommendations. What the state's saying is, think of it like a summer reading list. Think of it like a math packet that's sent over the summer. Okay, so there's information out there. We're highly recommending that students engage with those resources and materials, and they're completing it on their own pace, but there's not an expectation of graded assignments. The kids, when they come back, just like with summer reading, there's an expectation that they will have completed some work, but we understand that students might be in different places, and they're not going to be graded as such, as this is not a school day. So that there is some confusion there. There is some challenges there. It's sort of a whole new world. We're going to be dealing with this in a different way when we come back. But the idea is that there's a million things out there to do. There's virtual tours of museums. There's science lessons. We have free programs like Zern for math that students can go in. And many of them are accustomed to doing this in a hybrid fashion in their classroom, so they're going to engage with that in that way. Teachers are using Google Classroom, but not as an interactive online learning tool where but a teacher may record a video for a student to learn from. They may make a video of them reading a book to a class that students can listen to during the day. They may demonstrate how to do some math problems. They may put some content out there that students can engage with. Teachers we've agreed at minimum, they are checking in at the beginning of the week and pushing some content out, and then checking in with students throughout the week as well. Okay. On the special education side, we have also additionally asked our teachers to contact on their caseload just to check in, and we think that that's wonderful. So they have some very specific guidelines that Cynthia Conant's worked on and developed that she's given out to all our special education folks about exactly how that looks. Since they're calling from home phones, we've given some guidance about how to keep your number private when you're engaging and how to use your school email address when engaging. But those are check-ins to see how students are doing, to check in with parents, and to check in with those on their caseloads. And then, in addition to that, we've also just got some other great things that are happening that are more the social education. Our student council, Amy Sandernote and her students, and we've also got some volunteers in the community that are coming together to do some social interaction virtually, which I think is just a fantastic idea. Those things are taking shape, but that might look like, a high school buddy reaching out to some students in the middle school, for example, and just having some social time as a nice break in the middle of the day, which I just thought was a fantastic idea. Everybody wants to help. We can't necessarily be person to person physically close together, but I think that ability to make those kind of connections, I thought that was just a wonderful idea. So you're going to hear more about those ideas coming soon as well. So kind of a long answer there, Chris, but I hope that I covered some of what you're looking for.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. Diana, do you have any comments or questions?
I only have a comment, Patrick and the rest of the administration. I just want to thank you both from a school committee perspective, but then also the parent experience has been really streamlined. I feel like it was a great balance of communication. And I think that I've heard that in the community as well. So I just wanted to thank you for the great job that you guys are doing through all of this.
Thank you, Diana.
Great. Are you guys able to hear me now? This is Michael Conley.
We are, Michael.
Great. I had a little microphone difficulties earlier, but I just wanted to echo Dr. Daly's comments in that, the custodial staff is certainly, stepping up and then doing a great job with the cleaning over these last, several days, and I'm certainly glad to see the efforts and the progress made on that front. And at the same time, the food service staff is also preparing, and they're partnered with the food service pantry in North Reading this week. So I certainly appreciate the assistance by Michael Goverto to provide some steps there this week to families. And then starting on Monday, we'll be having a grab and go, delivery and pickup, mail program started. So there's a lot of good work being done by some staff that's working hard.
Thank you very much. Okay, this is Imbriano. Janine, do you have any comments? We will move on to Rich. Rich, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, thanks. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Couple things. One is I just want to commend not only Dr. Daly but the superintendents around the state towards the end of last week for really taking the lead on school closures. I think they were a little bit ahead of the state guidance in that area, and I think they were very quickly proven to be making the right decision. So I appreciate that they came together. The fact that Patrick, that you were able to, that the Merrimack Valley Superintendents Association was able to come together and act as a group, I thought was really powerful, and I congratulate you on that effort, because I think like I say, I think the superintendents were a little bit ahead and leading the way in this area. So I appreciate that, and also I'm really glad to see some of the things that we're doing. What's happening with the food service program and the food pantry, I think, is wonderful. I hope everyone in the town becomes aware of it and is able to take advantage of it. It's certainly one of those areas that one immediately starts to think about when these things happen. Is those kids who rely on school breakfasts and lunches for a significant portion of their nutrition. So I appreciate those efforts as well. I don't have any questions though, so thanks.
Thank you. I see Janine now. Janine, do you have any comments?
Scott, do you mind if I just address that? So I just want to thank you, Rich, for those comments. I think that I just want to clarify too. At this time, we're saying the free and reduced lunch is for those, the free breakfast are for those that are eligible for free and reduced lunch, and that's what we've sent out. But I want to extend, if anyone is having an extreme hardship or need and needs to benefit from those, please contact Anna McGovern, as her information is here. I have it up on the screen as well. I want to make sure that no student is going hungry, but certainly the free and reduced lunch students that are eligible would come first. we're not receiving some of the reimbursements that they are in other districts, and that's why the program may look a little different than it does in other districts. But I just want to say here that we will find a way to help you if your children are hungry, no matter what's going on. I want to thank also our town working with in my long career here as superintendent, I haven't had so many opportunities to work with our town. And Michael Gilberto and I were talking about an opportunity for me to go around and shake people's hands to introduce myself. And I guess this is quite the way to get to meet everyone. But from our health department, Bob Bracey and Pam Bath, to Michael Gilberto, who I've been in constant contact with, and our chiefs, and we really came together. I want to say the whole town was so proactive. I felt that North Reading was really well positioned. We started meeting with some preventative meetings about 2.5 weeks ago. We had an emergency meeting on, I believe, Tuesday of last week, and then things just really amped up on Thursday. I agree. We came together. Friday was a challenging day. As we got information from the commissioner and the governor that we felt just wasn't going far enough, and we quickly shifted to roundtables with Merrimack Valley Group and every roundtable group to make this sort of unified decision. It was something that I had sort of called for with our superintendents about a week earlier and said we need a unified response, because once districts start going rogue, it starts setting precedent, and that's sort of what was happening over the week. And we really came together on Friday and said we need to take the information we have from the best information we've gathered from around the state and come to a unified decision. And I think that was a great decision. And as you said, over the weekend, then the governor kind of matches what we did. And so we're going to continue to watch that moving forward. So thank you. I just wanted to get those two responses out to Rich. Thanks, Scott.
Of course. Janine, can you unmute yourself now to talk?
I figured it out. Yay. I just wanted to echo what everyone else is saying. What a whirlwind. I had mentioned something to Patrick the other day about welcome to your superintendency, and he said, hey, baptism by fire. So I think everyone's doing an incredible job on this, and I think through perseverance, we'll probably get through it unscathed, hopefully. Just thank you, Patrick, and the administration and the town side and everything for everything that is going on. So that's it.
Thank you, Janine. And for my comments, obviously same thing. I want to just thank everybody for the work that they put in. I think, Patrick, you've been really good about keeping me up to date. I appreciate that you're not working on your own. You're working with other people. You're working with the town. You're working with other school districts, and it's really important to speak with one voice in times of crisis. And so I think nobody knows what the outcome of this is going to be, but all we can do is take it day by day. And I think you've tried to instill that message throughout, which is good. And my only question is when you can't have time on learning, I know that at the elementary level, there was 3 days of parent-teacher conferences that were scheduled. One of those occurred, the other two did not. And I've had a couple of people ask me, are those sorts of things that could happen on non-school days, or can they not happen on non-school days?
So, Scott, that's something that we've discussed at the administrative level and also with the teachers union. I think those are the things that could happen. I think we just have to talk about what it looks like and how they would happen. There's pros and cons to doing it now. I think we're already partway through the conferences. We had 1 of 3 days of elementary conferences that's already happened. Teachers were ready to give those conferences that day. So I think they're well positioned. I think high school was ready for them the next week. So Peter Kane has been great working with me to provide some guidance on how this could look, sort of a scenario A, B, with some guidance and expectations for folks. And so I think there's 2 ways to look at it. There's one way is like we proceed and we sort of have this procedure to do. The other way is, do we hit the pause button and kind of wait and see what's going next? And so I'm also talking to other superintendents to see where they are and where they're positioned and what to do. One thing that we certainly want to avoid, and we want to give careful guidance to the teachers, is we want the conversation to be about the students' progress up until March 12th and where the students are, and not have the focus of the conversation be about what's next, why are we doing this, when are we going back to school. I mean, honestly, questions teachers aren't equipped to handle right now because we're still trying to figure this out and wait it. So I think we have to give some scripted responses and communicate that out to parents that these will be the responses to those questions, because I'm a little wary of misinformation getting out there. If one teacher says this and then it spreads, oh, this teacher said that. The teachers honestly don't know any more about when we're coming back than I do, which is right now it's April 7th, but we don't know. And anything that's speculation, I'd be concerned with that getting out. Now, that said, as I mentioned earlier, teachers are reaching out anyway, so we already have communication happening. So I don't think it would be that different between what we're doing now. But you are putting yourself in a certain situation, and we have to think about that. I also don't want it to raise any more alarm. If a parent right now thinks their student's doing fine, and they have a conversation, and they realize maybe they need more help, and now they're more concerned because we're not in school. So I don't want to heighten anyone's anxiety by doing this, right? So I think we can achieve that. I've heard our administrative council is somewhat split at the moment about whether it's a good idea to hit pause or whether to continue. In some ways, it's like, let's wait. In other ways, it's, hey, this is all fresh in our minds. Let's get these through and get them completed. So my thought, Scott, is that we will continue to have this conversation this week and have some information to you soon with the response. It might not be formally at a meeting, but it might be through email that this is our plan to continue. I think we will have some kind of conference closure. That's, if I had to guess today, I feel like we're coming to consensus about what that could look like.
Thank you. Yeah, and just to kind of give my thoughts on this, it's twofold. Number one is, with conferences, you have to go to half days. Yep. And so my worry is if we do come back about, having to close to have conferences again would be, I'd love to avoid that if possible. And then my second concern is just, I was able to get the parent-teacher conferences in, and it was good to hear where my kids are, excelling and where they need a little bit of extra help. And so, when we do have 3 weeks, it's nice to say, really focus on reading with this child. And so, again, for me as a parent, it was useful to know that and hear some of the feedback about where they were at on March 12th. And, now when we're here, we can, if we're doing optional resources, maybe focus on reading math or versus reading, etc. So that was just my thoughts on it. But I appreciate all the work you guys are doing and your guidance on these issues. So moving on, so one of the main reasons we're here today is to discuss payment of wages. So go ahead, Patrick.
I just wanted to say that, one thing that we're going to want to get out there is that our, optional nature, and that, if there's really no pressing need or concern, we don't know that conference needs to happen. So, on both sides, we'll work through, those pieces. So I think we have some information there. Before we move to wages, can I just clarify about the school day and the vacations, just to clarify that?
Of course.
So, I posted this, and what I'm doing with the frequently asked questions is, as we add new information, we'll throw it up there in yellow. So as you're scanning through, if you see something highlighted in yellow, that might be something new that wasn't there yesterday. So one thing that we're putting out there, and this is a bit confusing, but we're required to attend for 185 days this year because the commissioner has extended backwards. So usually you don't have to make up any days after April 1st. He moved that back to March 15th. So until we hit our regularly scheduled 185th day, which is June 24th, that is the last mandated day that we need to be in school. We do not need to make up the days for time on learning purposes that occur from March 15th until the end of the school year, as long as we hit our 185. So with the number of snow days that were already called, I believe there were 2, and I remember feeling good that I didn't have to call a snow day. So there were no snow days. March 13th was one day. Monday was day 4, and then Tuesday would have been day 5, I believe. We are now we've used our 5 days. The rest of the days of this closure through April 7th, we do not need to make up. Now that said, both sides, teachers, students, everyone, we need to be thinking about what it actually will look like when we return and whether we need some extra days. So some other day be on the table for actual time on learning that we feel is to get kids ready to give final exams, to have ceremonies like graduations, things like that might be in flux to the end of the year. The same goes for April vacation. I mean, we need to be thinking, at least in the back of our minds, I think a lot of us may have canceled or changed our travel plans anyway, but if we were to return on April 7th, it'd make a lot of sense to come back for a week and a half and then take a 5-day vacation again. Okay, the marathon's canceled, those things are moved. So if we were to be in school, we need to be thinking about a little bit differently. No decisions made on that, but I just wanted to make sure that is clear that that's on the table for making up some lost time. So I wanted to just put that out there.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yes, go, Chris. Chris.
Mr. Buckley, can I ask a quick question? Just with introducing that idea, and Dr. Daly, we all heard you that things are very much in a state of flux now. That said, there are some families that might not have adjusted their travel. An idea of anything, a date on which decision will be made for any of those bigger things like changing April vacation?
Not this week, and then I think as we get closer to 7th, either know whether it's being extended at that time. I think as the closer we get to April 7th, we should be talking about what April vacation looks like. And I think we're going to continue to be flexible with that. So if someone's really stressed out about missing days because of existing vacation on April vacation and we're back, I mean, we'll figure that out. But we want to provide as many opportunities for school days as students this year. I mean, so with this large amount of thing, we want to make sure that students have enough time in school to meet grade level expectations. And you know, we might be having a very different conversation in 3 weeks, but right now that's where we're at. So we want to be thinking about, you know, getting kids by June 30th as much time in school as possible to get what they need to learn for that year. So if you folks want me to have a deadline in mind, I can definitely consider, you know, something like that might work.
I mean, I think any date we pick would be quasi-arbitrary, but it's something for us to think about and maybe chat about.
Yeah, we have a school committee meeting coming up. We can continue to reevaluate at that point in time, I guess. But I do think that's a good point, Chris. Where especially if people have to cancel by a certain date to get money back, if they haven't canceled yet, and so, but who knows what's going to happen? I think everyone's worried that it could be longer than 3 weeks, and so, you know, we'll just take it week by week right now.
And that's why I put it out there now. If you're on the fence, it might be a good idea to think about. We may still be in a, you know, we may have to extend the closure to cover those weeks, and we may also be coming back and then not going on vacation. I want people to be thinking of that now. Okay,
thank you. Yeah, everyone's worried about not talking to people. I kind of like never leaving my house and talking to people anymore. So, okay, so moving on. So, payment of wages, and I don't know if Patrick or Michael would like to present on the issue and what authority you're looking for from us.
Michael, would you like to address it? Or should I?
Okay, can you everyone hear me?
Well, I'll begin by saying that
yes, we can hear you, Michael.
Okay. Yeah, so I think what we are looking to get accomplished here is we are looking for approval to move forward during the school closure period and pay our both salary and hourly employees their wages, essentially as if we were sort of operating the school district as normally, based on either their standardized hours that they would be working from during this school closure period. So I think that's the first item that we're looking for approval, and that's certainly the first item on the agenda here.
So if I can just clarify, Michael, I want to clarify a couple things. First and foremost, one or two votes. Maybe there should be two. Well, I guess it can be all together, but it's going to be on just the approval of wages through April 7th right now, because that's all we're closed right now, correct? Okay, and then,
that is correct.
And while I will say
that is correct.
I will say right now, while I am in favor of that, I do think it merits getting a little bit more information as well about what the contractual obligations are, and in particular with the hourly employees, because I know I've asked you guys these questions, what the cost is, and so just so everybody understands, when again, I'm in favor of doing this, but I do want to make sure that we are clear that this is, especially with hourly employees, I don't think this is something that has to happen. And, our decision also puts some pressure on the town, because there's other people in town that also are, being paid by tax dollars that are hourly as well. And I think the hourly employees, it's about $85,000 per week that we're talking about. And so I just want to see if other people have comments or thought process on looking through this.
Scott, can I do something quickly?
A lot of people. Go ahead.
If I could, Michael, just, we made the decision early on that people needed to be kept whole as we were trying to scramble to figure out what was going on. So what we did put out in our frequently asked questions and what we communicated out was that we were going to keep people whole, including hourly employees. This is that was basically consensus throughout the state to do during this time. And again, I think it's definitely that period of 2 weeks, which I'm now asking, as Scott mentioned, to extend to the full 3 weeks of the close. If this were to continue, I think that's what we need to discuss. I do want to clarify, because the questions coming in quite a bit. This were time positions. So stipends, coaching positions, those kind of positions, we're not necessarily voting today to keep those whole, because some of those positions are dependent on sources of revenue that also might be not happening. For example, we're not selling lunches, and so that has an impact on money that's not coming in to the district. So, I understand that people depend on those stipends and those as a part of their salary. We're addressing keeping people whole. We're talking about full-time positions. I think that's an important clarification to make.
Yes, that's correct. I appreciate Dr. Daly's comments. That is what we're looking to do, and as you can read through the FAQ, that is a something we put out there, kind of early on during this closure period. That is a commitment that we would make. We're really looking to not want to create any sort of undue kind of economic hardship during this certainly time of crisis, but there's certainly a lot of factors to consider in doing that. But we are looking at their kind of regular standard hours and wages. Anything, as Dr. Daly noted, beyond the regular base wages is something that we're not talking about with this vote right now.
Okay, so committee members, any comments or thoughts? We'll go the same order. Chris?
Sure. Just on that topic, and this might have gotten answered, but I was having trouble with some of the audio here. It sounds like this applies at a distance to full-time employees. I'm not sure exactly who isn't a part-time employee. I understood coaches and stipended positions aren't included in this, but all clerical staff, custodial staff, lunch staff, and say any half-time faculty members, they are included in this. They would be getting paid.
Michael, do you want to answer?
That what we are essentially talking about here would be, our salaried wage folks as essentially the administrators and the teachers. And we're certainly asking those folks to continue to do some work during the period of closure. And the hourly wages folks that we're really speaking about is really essentially what you just kind of laid out. Would be certainly the Secretary of Staff, the paraprofessionals, custodians, special education bus drivers that we employ, as well as the food service workers, and then the business office staff, which is accounts payable and payroll accountants. They are still working, and they are working remotely and processing payroll and keeping accounts payable warrants going during this time period.
Okay, thank you. And then one last question. Building subs, would they be included as well?
So the building subs are not included. We actually tried to get all their timesheets through March 13th to payroll before our payroll folks left. So anyone that had worked through March 13th during the time we were open, or through March 12th, would be compensated on these during this 2-week period as we normally would. But there's no daily or building subs coming in now, so those folks would not get paid. If there's a situation where there was a long-term substitute that was contracted to come in for a long period of time, either a year, 6 months for a teacher that was on an approved leave of absence, we are looking to pay those individuals.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Diana, do you have any questions or thoughts?
Can you hear me? Am I off mute? Okay.
Yes.
No, I don't have any questions. I'm absolutely in favor, but I appreciate you walking us through the details of it.
Great, thank you. Janine, any comments or thoughts, questions?
So what we're talking about right now is just for up until the April 7th,
Okay.
right? And your part
Correct.
2 would be if it goes beyond that?
I don't think we're going
Scott.
to vote on that today.
But
Well,
that is
no,
your
the part 2
question?
was, the 2 potential motions were, do we have to have a separate motion for salaried versus hourly? Because I think they're different contractual things. I don't know that we have much say in that, but I think it can, if all we're going to do is say, let's keep everything the same, I think it can just be one motion. I was just thinking out loud about whether 1 or 2 motions were needed.
Well, no, because sometimes the sound breaks off and it's difficult to understand what's being said, so my apologies on that. But having asked that question, if it goes beyond the April 7th, would we reevaluate at that point?
Yeah, so I've spoken to Patrick.
I would say, yeah, I would suggest. Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Patrick. Okay,
I'll go.
You're breaking up a little bit, Patrick. Patrick, you're breaking up a little bit, so why don't I go? Am I coming through clearly, Janine?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, I think we've talked about the reevaluating afterwards, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we also don't know what the plans would be after April 7th. Like there could be some, for example, changing April vacation, and if we're going to then have people that are working over April vacation, there might be contractual issues that need to be addressed. There could be extension of the school year. It won't be, we're saying the last days that's required is June 24th. What if we thought there would be a couple more days? So I think beyond the 3-week closure, there could be some changes to the schedule going forward. And so I think that we would want to reevaluate that beforehand. So I think in the very beginning, the concern was people that weren't prepared for any of this what do we do? So I think right now we're only talking about the 3-week period, and then we can come together before that period is up if we want to talk about an extension beyond that.
So if I could, there's a great issue.
That was my question, because if I understood what Patrick was saying extends and we end up going past June 24th, then we're going to be liable for those salaries at that point in time. So that was kind of my concern, that it's not extended past the 7th. And how does the government's, I can't think of the words, how does that, will we get reimbursed, or can the hourly people and the salary people get reimbursed if we can't afford to pay them past June 24th type thing? You know what I'm saying? Is what we're doing today going to cause repercussions if the virus, goes away and we end up being able to have school past the 24th?
So I know, Patrick, you were trying to say something. Do you want to jump in here?
I'll just say, I completely agree. I think there's so many variables on both sides with all of our unions as well as the administration and management. Questions that will come up that will need to be bargained and discussed. So I would recommend doing this April 7th, but certainly needing to reevaluate. And there's also so much coming out, as you say, from the department, from the federal government, that could be game changers. So I would be wary of making any kind of decision that takes us through June 30th at this time, because I think there's a lot of things that are questions that will be. I don't think there's any need to really make decisions. We can make our best guess, but I think to make an actual decision through the April 7th makes sense. But beyond that, I think there's a lot of variables that are still in flux.
Yes, and could I just add to Janine's question? So I as Patrick just mentioned, I think there is a lot that remains to be seen, since it's just a very, very fluid situation, unprecedented situation in the state. So there's certainly a lot to consider with any decisions beyond April 7th. That would certainly potentially have an impact. There is a chance the state would come in and provide wages in a temporary time period, but it certainly is a lot of variables to as Patrick just mentioned, of those decisions that we have to watch very closely over the next 2.5 weeks.
And I will add,
Patrick,
Janine, go, Diana.
I just wanted to ask Patrick a quick question. Do you happen to know what other neighboring communities are doing?
I do. I would say it's fairly the consensus that there will be everyone held harmless through 3 weeks. And we're certainly, with our own staff and employees, I think there's clear consensus across the board that everyone is held harmless, even those hourly folks, like I said, that are paid from revolving accounts, that money might not be coming in as typical. We want to hold people harmless. I know those are the first questions I got. I never wanted to put anyone in a situation where they're worried about making rent or getting food on their table because they're living paycheck to paycheck. And we certainly are going to take care of that through 3 weeks. I think we have to, we can't wait till April 6th to make a decision for what we're doing beyond that. But I think, we still have the better part of 3 weeks to continue those conversations. There are additional conversations that we're having daily about other employees that are indirectly working for the schools, such as bus drivers, and we need to think about those positions as well. And it's very complicated. These things are in flux every day, but there is certainly consensus among, the entire. I'm on a listserv and conference calls with all the supers in the state, and there is certainly consensus about keeping people whole for the next 30 days. Through April 7th. And we took the lead and put that out there to give people peace of mind, because they wanted answers right away. And I appreciate, what I'm hearing is some support for that idea here, but I know we'll do a formal vote. So.
Thank you.
Okay. And
can I make a couple comments?
Yeah, go ahead, Rich, and then I have a few as well.
A couple of comments. First of all, about the sound. Patrick, there's one open mic. I think it might be Diana.
Okay.
I don't know if you can mute that. I think it's causing some echo. And also, as we said, Patrick, you've been in and out, and I think it might have to do with the fact that you seem to have 3 connections into the chat. Just don't know if there's anything you can do about it now, but just to let you know. But anyway, that being said, regarding the issue,
Yeah, I'm recording. I'm recording the.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm presenting and I'm recording, so that's why I'm on.
Okay. So regarding the question at hand, definitely in favor of this. And also, it seems pretty clear that any discussion of what might or might not happen after April 7th is way premature. I think we all, know in our hearts that there's a really good chance that this will be extended, and at which point, any plans we make now will be a little bit, pointless at this point. So I would say that this is the right thing to do, and also I would say probably a good thing to do just for the school community and making sure everyone's well taken care of. So.
Thank you, Rich. So I have a couple comments as well. One clarification, surprise. One clarification first. Patrick mentioned the bus drivers. I think we're going to talk about the bus drivers later or separately. This is the motion we're talking about right now does not include paying bus drivers. The first motion we're talking about is just for North Reading public school employee. The second comment would be I had also asked some of the same questions to Michael about unemployment. I don't know much about unemployment. We don't have any legal answers really, but basically with unemployment, you would only get about 50% of your salary, and I don't. Even though somebody's not working, we don't think that you could file for unemployment, get 50% of your wages, and then us still pay them part of the wages, because that's not the way it was intended. And so, I mean, Parley would love to do that where we could save half of it. They can get their unemployment and make the argument that, you're not working, it's not normal wages, giving is more of a benefit rather than an actual hourly wage. But I think for the next 3 weeks, I don't think we can make that. We're not going to make that argument. But I was wondering about that as well. And the last point is just the reality is in our budget we have allocated money for this. So this is not looking at a cost overrun of things. This is looking at just using the money that was set aside. Now, granted, it was set aside for work to be done. But again, it's not like we're drawing into reserve funds to pay, normal hourly wages that we were planning on. So, any other further comments that we can take, and then maybe we can have a motion to approve as normal the salaried and hourly wages through April 7th.
Why would we pay the bus drivers if the bus is under contract? I thought they took care of that, just for clarification on my side.
Can I speak to that a little bit, Scott?
Mike, let me ask you a question, Michael. Are we gonna vote on that today as well?
So the idea is that we don't plan to ask for a vote on that today. We want to kind of gather some more information about that. Speak to other districts, speak more with the actual company on what the implications of either doing that or not doing that. I will say, certainly our bus company, I think other bus companies have been reaching out to school districts across the state that they're under contract with and requesting if there was a way we could work something out where at least the labor portion of the contract, as you know, we get charged a per day fee per bus that we run, which for us is about $330 a day per bus. Not all of that obviously is the salary of the bus driver. There's fuel and there's overhead built into that rate. So they've certainly, they're asking districts across the state, not just North Reading, to consider during a period of closure to at least pay the labor portion of that rate. So that rate would probably go down by about 50% from what I'm told. Mainly because of a concern is if they were completely laid off during this time period, and the time period were to extend, there's a chance that those bus drivers would go get other jobs. They would have to pursue other work. And then at that time, when we do resume normal operations, normal school activity, there's a chance, given that there's such a shortage of qualified bus drivers, that we would not have the bus drivers to come back to work and drive our students. But that we're not asking for a vote on that. That's the argument coming from the bus companies. It certainly needs further discussion and further evaluation in collaboration with other school districts as well.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. So if I can have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
I move that the school committee vote to support the administration plan to continue to pay employees their regular pay through April 7th.
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, so we have to do a roll call on this. Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye, definitely.
Janine?
Aye.
Diana? And I'm an aye as well, so passes 5-0 unanimous.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Now, we do have on here routine matters, so Patrick or Michael, are there routine matters or any minutes or anything else you want us to go through as well?
Bring folks up to speed on, I don't know if this is a good time to address it. This is more would qualify under budget update, I would think. In bids and donations update is, as the committee was aware, we've kind of had the two energy management initiatives that we've been pursuing. We in regards to the LED lighting project and proposals, we did receive two requests for proposals from two very qualified firms that I think gave very, very interesting proposals that both have pros and cons, and I think they're both very qualified to do the work. So I was in touch with Dr. Daly, and we feel the best method of moving forward, or the next logical step, was actually to move forward and create a selection committee of myself, Dr. Daly, Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds, Wayne Hardiger, who's, I think, the chairman of the school committee, obviously Mr. Buckley, as a member of the budget subcommittee, is a logical person to sit on that selection committee. Diana, who's also been involved in some of the conversation as a member of the budget subcommittee, we feel like it may be appropriate to kind of run those meetings through budget subcommittee type meetings. And we've also reached out to the town, Michael Gilberto, and asked him to, if he has anybody from the town that he would like to sit on the committee as well. We're certainly more than interested in opening it up that way. But essentially what we're looking to do is invite each firm in, have them make a presentation on 4 or 5 key criteria that we're considering that they would be provided for in advance. We would share those proposals out to the committee members in advance of the meetings. And I think it would be important for more people to be involved in the decision. It's a very big decision and involves financing before we move forward. So that is what we felt was the logical steps. Now, we were going to have this be kind of face-to-face interviews. That was the plan over the next 2 or 3 weeks. I feel like, given what's going on, if we were going to move on this over the next, between now and April 7th, those would have to be more virtual meetings. I think we could definitely arrange with each firm. But I did want to update the committee that that's sort of our thought process on the LED lighting, and take any comments or thoughts on who should be on that committee, and if we are we all in agreement that the budget subcommittee members make the most sense to serve.
So, Michael, to begin, when you had talked to me before, you had also mentioned Finance Committee, possibly Don Kelleher. Is that another person?
So I reached out to Don Kelleher, and he is very interested in taking part, and he is and he appreciated the invitation. So I do believe Don Kelleher would take part.
Sorry, Scott. Would you be able to reach out on the social network and find out someone who lives in North Reading who is knowledgeable in the solar or the LED?
If we want a parent, there actually is somebody. There is somebody that I know for solar, but not for LED. If we want a parent on there, perhaps even Patrick could just send a school-wide thing and post it and just say if there's anybody that's interested. If you're saying you want a community member, a parent.
It was just a thought, but I was actually thinking solar, not LED. I just remember when we were doing the development of the school, there was a couple of parents that had come up that were very interested in the solar aspect of it, so that's what popped to mind.
Well, just to elaborate, because Michael talked to me the other day about this, and where we're at, it's really, there's two different proposals that are very similar, and a lot of it's just going to be piercing the specifics of them to see which proposal is better. So I don't think this is as much about, like, should we do it or not do it. It's more just digging into the numbers and figuring out what estimates, like, for example, for reimbursement, some of the numbers had to deal with, like, RMLD's reimbursement under this or that, or how much you would save. And so I think a lot of it is just piercing the numbers and really trying to get the proposals to apples. It's a lot less about, should we do it or not do it? It's more just looking at the details of it. So it's, again, I mean, if there's a community member that's interested in it, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I think a lot of times when we ask community members, we really want more direction on what does the community want. This is, I think, more about just evaluating the two proposals as opposed to, deciding if we should do it or not. So I don't know what others think about inviting community or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that, Scott. I think you certainly could ask for, if anybody has particular expertise in a general email, but I think better if we know if we know of any expertise out there that we could include them, that would be maybe the best thing. But I just think an open invitation to community members is probably not what we need to do at this point.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, I think it's good to have the town involved. I think Finance Committee is very important because I think Finance Committee can really shed some expertise on this. Don in particular. And I think I agree with Michael that if we have a budget subcommittee, that's where this could lie. But I think that's probably enough for now, and because otherwise, if you get multiple community members, then we have to discuss about who should and shouldn't do it, and there's a little bit of a time is of the essence here because both of them have put proposals in, and I don't know how long they're open for, and we need to really evaluate the two proposals and make a decision. So I would be in favor of what Michael suggested.
I agree. Sorry, I
could just say one more thing about that. I'm happy with the budget subcommittee members being part of this group. I would love to see the presentations though. So if especially if they're virtual, if that I don't know if they could be open to the public or at least open to the other committee members in a non-participatory way. Keep that in mind.
Michael, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, if the challenge is there's going to be a presentation and there's going to be a lot of questions as well, and so then it will be some discussion from the questions. I think we could probably at least tape them and then perhaps share them afterwards or something. But I don't know. I don't know what I think the idea was originally to have somebody come in the room. We would all sit around. We would ask questions about it. We would probably have a meeting in advance to prepare questions after looking at the proposals. I think one thing we could for certain do is we could probably send out the proposals to everybody. I don't think that would be anything that would be inappropriate because there are written proposals. Michael, do you think that sounds okay?
Yeah, I think that sounds like probably the best idea. Is I had the written proposals that I received, and then what I was going to do is ask each firm to send me their presentation in advance, and then I was thinking to using the kind of the GoToWebinar format, making the presentation part of documents that all the panelists or members would see, and then when they're certainly presenting, they'll speak and kind of walk through a PowerPoint. And then there's opportunity for kind of questions and back and forth, either through the chat or kind of this type of format of unmuting lines, et cetera. So, both firms are really want our business. They've been really aggressive. They've really worked with RMLD to confirm numbers and that it's in line with their rebate program. What's happening is just some firms are taking a little bit of a different approach to the financing, a little bit different approach between our work with RMLD and how the rebates get made part of the equation. So I think getting a little bit more people involved is the best approach. And then I think from there that everyone would kind of understand the timeline of the project and how it would kind of play out once an award is eventually made. So, but I think definitely sharing out the RFPs as well as the presentations makes sense. And then my thought was once the committee had a chance to deliberate, the selection committees, there would be a presentation by that selection committee to the full school committee at a public meeting.
And we do have a school committee meeting on Monday as well, and so I suspect that nothing's going to happen before Monday. So we could probably put it on the agenda, share materials, and have a brief follow-up discussion on specific questions that the committee has. So maybe we could get your thoughts to bring to the presentation. So if we possibly can put that on for the Monday meeting, we can then share out the proposals there and get some initial feedback. Okay. So I don't think we need a motion on that, but I appreciate the updated to some of the work that the budget subcommittee will do.
There was one, I just wanted to provide an update on the solar as well at the same time. So there'll be obviously these two pretty massive projects going on. Solar was due to be released on this past Monday, the 16th. So we had advertised last week, and the RFP was due to go to bidders on Monday. So given certainly the school closure and what's happening, I have delayed that RFP because there was going to need to be pre-conference bid meetings, site visits, site walkthroughs by many vendors between now and March 27th. So it just didn't seem like, given that what we're dealing with, obviously that it made sense to move forward. All of the bidders that were interested, that saw the initial advertisement, fully understand that. So we have kind of putting that on hold or delaying it, at least at this point, until after April 7th. I just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So, is there any more routine matters or information, subcommittee update, administrative report? And I think we could keep the subcommittee we can pass over subcommittees till Monday. Anything else in the administrative report or correspondence, Patrick? Did we lose Patrick? Patrick, you're on mute still. We go to the assistant superintendent for backup. Michael, anything else?
Yeah, I don't believe there was anything else that Patrick certainly wanted to cover today. I think it was really certainly the update on the COVID-19, our action on the wages, and again providing the updates on those two projects and any impact on those. Yeah, I believe that's where we stand at this point. Looks like Patrick is here.
I'm just having a RAM issue with my computer, so it's just getting taxed. I'm recording and all this stuff at once. So yeah, I just wanted to point out that, as noted in the minutes, that there is no subcommittee meetings and everything have been canceled at this point, and a lot of those pieces are not there. And I do want to ask a question, Scott, about the next meeting, because I do need to get that posted. So I'm assuming we will also do virtual. I felt this worked fairly well, and so we would do a virtual meeting. Will we keep it at the scheduled time of 6:30 p.m. on Monday?
I'd be in favor of that. Yeah, I see a lot of nods. So
okay, so it'll be a virtual meeting set up the same way, provided that all goes well with what we did here. I think it will. I think we're going to be able to get a draft of the minutes. I believe Ann Lundell is helping take those minutes. We're going to get that up soon, and then we'll have something together. And I would put out a new posting with a different Hangout option for Colin that I'll then circulate, similar to today.
Great. Thank you very much. So if that concludes our business, maybe Rich, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Janine, you want to say? Chris?
Second.
Whoever. Okay.
It works.
All those in favor. Rich?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Janine?
Aye.
Diana?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Thank you very much, everyone.
Have a great
Great job,
day,
everyone.
guys.
Bye.
Stay healthy.